What is the one thing worse than getting fired? We'll discuss that this morning, and I welcome you to episode number 477 on the 2nd of February 2022 as we begin the juggernaut towards the 500th episode. The 500th episode. It doesn't get any better, does it? Well, it doesn't. Well, there's a long way to go for the 500th episode, and there are a lot of things to cover. But this morning, and those who will listen to it in the evening, for them, this evening, we have an interesting question. What is the one thing that is worse than getting fired? Humans have a strange mantra, a strange template. It's all about promotions, demotions, and salary. If you want to reward someone, you will promote them. If you think that an individual hasn't won, hasn't been productive, you will demote them. And how do you do that? Well, everything revolves around that ubiquitous salary. If you promote, everyone sees this as something that is good for the company, good for the individual, growth of the individual. It all revolves around three terms: promotions, demotions, and salary. Which means if you are in a higher position in a company and you get relegated to a lower position, it is seen as a negative thing. It's as simple as that. It's seen as a negative thing. It's seen as you are not good enough to be in this position, to be at this place, and you are done. If you are promoted, if your bosses or the higher ups feel that you're good enough, you will get a promotion. And everyone gets excited. Like we see a few so called American Indians or British Indians. I think the term American Indians is a ridiculous term, and we get excited when individuals like Satya Nadella or Sundar Pichai or the one who was just given the job of the CEO of Twitter, we get excited. Wow, look at this! How Indians are doing well. Well, they are doing for that company. They have no association with us. So why should we be happy with their promotion or demotion? And then we are worried when in the company there is argument between the current CEO or MD or whatever and his boss. And this argument becomes an argument on pseudo media. You are demoted, your salary is reduced, and that's the way the human mind works, and that's what the human mind has been accustomed to. That's how we work. And it just doesn't happen in the world of profession. It happens in academics, it happens in sports. Academics, everyone knows how it happens. Let's see that. Whether it's sports or academic, it's all about perform or perish. That's the way things work. You perform, you are good. You don't perform, you perish. There's no other way to make a human mind understand it's the human psyche. Nothing else works in this particular situation. Human mind is like that, will always be like that. I'm coming to something, so you will just have to be patient at what is the basic theme of this morning's, or for those who are listening in the evening, this evening's episode, or whatever part of the world you are in, morning, evening, afternoon, or somewhere in the middle. And that's the way the human mind works. Let's understand this in a more deep fashion. It's the world of three P's: perform, perish, and productivity. If you perform, you're productive, you will get a promotion. It could be in terms of salary, it could be in terms of a higher position, which will earn you the respect of your fellow colleagues or employees. If if you don't perform up to the expectations, certain expectations, which means you are perishing, which means you might be demoted. It could be in terms of, let's take the example of a sports athlete in the world of cricket, captain being removed from their position. That's a demotion. That's because they were perishing and they weren't productive enough in terms of their employers, that is, the governing bodies. That's the mantra which has worked for decades. And despite all the talk about modernity and moving on to digitization and everything else, this particular structure, mantra, the idea, it will never go away. That's the way human minds have worked. They will work right now. They worked 30, 40 years ago. Everyone works to get a promotion. No one in the world works for someone else just to be in the same position. Then they will say, I have not grown. I have not gone from a regular employee to be, I have not I was a regular employee for 10 years. I deserve to go up. I deserve to be the vice president, executive vice president, CEO, MD, head of the department. I deserve that. I've been doing this for 15 years. It happens in every profession, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's sports, whether it's academics in terms of teachers. If a teacher has been in the same school for 20 years, they deserve to be the principal of the school or the HOD of the school. And once they have worked for another few years as the HOD of the school, they deserve to become the principal. And going further, maybe even get a share in the school. So that's how it is. And how do you evaluate a teacher? Well, it's difficult, but we evaluate students, but teachers evaluate students. Remember, as I said, it doesn't matter how many education policies we bring about, how much we boast about moving to digitization, digital learning, or whatever be the thing, some things just don't change. And this is a very interesting discussion. In academics, teachers grade students based on their performances and their rate. Their rate in terms of A, B, C, D, F, or 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 5. This is your rating. Out of 10, this is your rating. We all love to rate. If you've read my book, the fourth book, you will understand where the idea is coming from. We will always rate. Rating is the way human beings think they work better. Unless that happens, human beings don't feel it. And when you're downgraded, well, then you feel bad. If a student is an A plus student and for one semester or for one subject, that student is so ego fueled that that student always received A plus in their grading, or 95 plus student, and for one subject or one semester or one term or one credit or whatever be the terminology, they get A. It's almost as like you have been hit by a tracer bullet. You have been hit. It's almost depressing if A plus student gets goes from 95 to 90 because he loses 5 precious percent, and then he or she is judged by the teachers, by the peers, by the parents. Parents will always judge. That's only a pretense that they have any concern. But parents will say, you've gone from 95 to 90. Why? You were 95. Where did you go wrong? Why did you lose those 5 precious percent? Or why did you go from A plus to A? Well, That's a discussion which we can go on forever and ever. But for tonight's discussion or this morning discussion or whichever part of the world you are in, that kind of discussion, the Indian Cricket Board follows a similar template. It awards annual central contracts, which means they have grading categories. Remember, I talked last year about the same thing, but this year it's a different discussion. Grading categories in A plus, A, B, and C. Nobody wants, everybody wants to be A plus. No matter how much human beings progress, how much we have technology in our lives, we will always be affected by grading and marking. It doesn't matter whether it's a road system in terms of education or in terms of sports. Sports athletes are paid according to their performance, an annual performance review. And this happens in the sport of cricket because the Indian Cricket Board or the board of bully cricket in India follows a similar pattern. Let me just read a few lines. With the Indian team of a cusp of a transition, it's the biggest excuse. The Indian Cricket Board is likely to make major changes in the central contracts of players. And as I said, under fire cricketers like Rahane and Chiteshwar Pujara are all said to be demoted to grade B from grade A category. And you can look at this from various angles. Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it fair to be demoted? Well, most will say yes. Those who will say yes are, of course, the jealous ones, those who have never done anything in their lives, those who never even got a C category grade. So they will say, yes, you don't perform, so you don't get the value. You don't get the value for your performance. And how, what is that value? The value is in terms of the mullah. And that's how it is. Even someone like Ishan Sharma is going to be one of the scapegoats along with Umesh Yadav. Why? Because these four individuals, they're all 33 plus, 34, around 33, 34. So they're in that category of old and transition and to be slowly put out of the team. At 34, I would say most people start their thing, but at 34 in sports, you're almost in that category where you have a, you have wear and tear on your body, you have broken bones, your body has gone through a lot of wear and tear, as we use the word, and it's in that cusp of deterioration. So, okay, you're not performing, you don't pick up 5 wickets in every match or at least every 2 matches, then why are you here? We can't fire you officially because firing is not the way things work, and firing won't prove anything. There's no fire. Firing, one way of firing is that person automatically retires or they don't put him in the contracts. They're not there in the contracts. That's as good as getting fired, though they become free agents. Then the Indian Cricket Board doesn't want that, because then they would play for other tournaments. They want a grasp on their employees or on their cricketers, so they cannot fire them or completely remove them from contracts, but they can downgrade them. The annual retainership contracts are given on the basis of the performance of the preceding year, whatever that means. Mohammad Siraj is expected to get a promotion from grade C to grade B or grade A. Once again, promotion for doing well and demotion for supposedly not doing well. Akshar Patel too may be elevated from grade C to grade B. As I said, it's subjective. Only two or three people, because the board likes them or they have a relationship with them. I don't know how does it work, but that's the way it is. Umesh Yadav is likely to fail to grade C. Look at the terminology being used by the newspaper: promoted, demoted, fail, under fire, as if it's not a sport, as if it's a company where certain individuals did not bring more clients, so they are likely to be demoted. I mean, this is ridiculous. Shardul Thakur is also likely to say in grade B. The contracts are divided into four categories: A plus, A, B, and C would be 7, 5, 3, and 1 crore. So I don't think going from A to B, that is 5 to 3 5 crore to 3 crore, not a big, not it's not as if it's a big demotion, but it's a big deal for them. Things are not going to be There are not going to be many additions in grade A plus and A. Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Jasprit Bumrah, I like to be written as A plus cricketers. See, everyone A plus, A listers, everyone loves this term. While KL Rahul and Pant will remain in grade A, Mohammad Shami, Ashwin, and Jadeja will also remain in grade A. Pujara and Bahane's demotion could signal the selectors' waning faith in these two veteran players. So, waning faith. So, how do you reward them? By demoting them. How do you reward someone who hasn't done well according to certain parameters? And it sends a message to all. If you don't perform as per our expectation or expectations of your fans, you will be punished. And then the the print, electronic, and digital super media has played a major role in this. It kept harping on the poor averages of some players, poor performance, while it had no right to. And the board used this. They were influenced, obviously, they have been influenced, and transition as an excuse to punish. It's so easy to punish. Punishment is the easy thing an individual can do, an organization can do. But then comes the question which I have been wanting to ask. Why don't we evaluate the pseudo experts? And then comes the question. Players, that is, sports athlete, are expected to be at their peak. Failures are a no no. Look at the example of Nadal. He won his 21st championship. He is the GOAT. He is the best. He, along with Federer and Djokovic, there's no one better. They are nice guys. I don't like the term nice guys because it's subjective and we are judging them. I don't know what Nadal does off camera or when he's not playing or how he converses with his peers and others. I don't know what he does just because he smiles and he is nice to the staff or he is hugging and shaking hands with his opponents. It doesn't make you a nice guy. Sometimes you have to do it for the camera because of the influence of multiple cameras. We are so influenced. Even the most experienced individuals fall for this hook, line, and center. And then they deliberately show images in which these players are behaving nicely or these players are praising their opponents. He's a great player. It was a pleasure playing with him. He did a great job. We fall for it every time. And really, it's nothing more than a big fat charade. But we'll talk about that later. Yet, more than 50% of the so called experts recruited by broadcasting channel should be in the F category. If we turn back the clock and look at the current lot who are so called experts, I won't name them because they're not worth it. And then everybody feels bad. You're retired and you go after them. You'll say, why go after us? Well, I'll say, I'll go after you if you go after the current lot. And when the current lot retires, they will go after the next lot. So I will also go after that lot. So we'll see. I can do that. I have no this thing, but this promotion, demotion, why limit it to athletes only? Why not include, well, the broadcasters include the pseudo experts? Whatever their contract is, no one knows. No, I don't even want to know how much certain athletes get because it doesn't concern me. That's their thing. And they getting salary doesn't affect my performance or me thinking that They're getting more. Why don't I also work hard? I won't be motivated by them working hard and them uh, waddling in luxury to affect me. That's the way. I don't work that way. But the question is, the current pseudo experts, in fact, few of them have a decent record, but a majority of them, they have no record to boast of, yet they go nuclear when the current lot doesn't perform. So if Vahane and Pujara didn't make centuries because we expect them to make centuries, and anything less than average of 50 is a failure, that's what the criteria is. So I disagree with this ridiculous assessment, but it's one of those acceptable norms. So as if they had a very stellar record. You look at the record of the current lot, except one or two, they themselves were averaging 25, 30 when they retired, or when they were not picked up, or when they were literally fired from the job. So why are they immune to being demoted or promoted when all they do is waffle? Why not we also evaluate if they give some comments which are not worth giving? Well, if a player doesn't perform, you say, I'm sorry, but you haven't performed up to our level or as per the expectation. And why can't you do it for the pseudo experts, the commentators? If they say something which is not decent, it's not about being negative or insulting, but there's some kind of expectation that if you're in that commentary box, if you have the mic in your hand, you're not supposed to get too deep into the person. But they're immune from this. They'll receive their contract. The broadcasters will give them the choice and go ahead, criticize as much as you want. You are immune, and that is what makes me a little annoyed. They have no right being immune. They also should be let me evaluate them. I'll tell them if they're in the A plus category, send them to the F category. I'll give you the names of those individuals who should be in the F category, receiving 1 rupee per year. They don't deserve that 1 rupee, but because they have to have a livelihood, they need to put food on the table, and everyone does, and they're the head of the table as is expected. So even 1 rupee per year is good enough. If there was an honest evaluation, half of them would be blacklisted for their incendiary comments. And I know exactly who these individuals are. It's not about freedom of speech and expression. It's about saying that, okay, yes, they did not perform, even if it's been a long gap. The one who is saying that these individuals haven't hit a century doesn't have a century to boast of. Doesn't matter if he did well in the domestic championship, because no one really cares about that. That's just so that the players are there. So it doesn't matter. You play 10 matches, you have an average of 25, your highest score is 70, and then you comment on other individuals who have been playing for over 12 years. Okay, their graph has gone down, but everybody's graph goes down. Okay, it's been too long, whatever that means. It's the so-called media. Of course, the board is involved in it, but I'm sure the captain coach really don't care. It's the board, which is an outside entity. It's the experts and the broadcasters and the PED media, superficial media, who are an outside entity. They don't know what it's like, because they know they will never be fired. They will never be demoted, but be more than happy to say that, okay, it's not the right thing. It's not the way to do something, but that's the only way things work. So why don't we evaluate these pseudo experts at the same time? Because then it's a simple thing. But what is good for the goose is not good for the gander. And that's the way it works. It is ridiculous, but that's the way human beings function. No matter how much we progress, how much we pretend that technology has affected us, it's nothing more than a charade, a drama. You may have computers, but computers doesn't matter. You may have the fastest computer in the world, but you will still evaluate someone on the basis of grades. You will still promote someone. You will still demote someone. You will still use the mantra perform or perish, you will say you're not being productive. Whatever the criteria is, whatever the guidelines are, human beings will never go away from that. It's very simple. If an individual brings more moolah into the company will reward him or her by promoting through salary. If he doesn't, he'll be demoted. It's a very simple thing. And here also it works. People don't watch because players are not performing. It affects their ad. Then the broadcasters don't pay the board suffers losses, and we are very sad. I don't care if the board suffers losses. How do you mitigate that? How do you counter that? You cut down the salary of a few players. Well, it's ridiculous, but it has worked for centuries. So no matter how much we progress, whether it's cryptocurrency or digital payments or whatever, we will always grade, we will always rate, we will always punish more than we will reward. And that's the way the human mind works, and that's not going anywhere. So this ends episode number 477 on the 2nd of February 2022. I will be back with episode number 478 on Friday, the 4th of February 2022.